one of his most popular plays, was produced a lot. It has never not been produced and has been adapted endlessly. It's kind of easy to see why now that we're sort of in the thick of it. I think it's generated primarily, I think almost entirely by emotion. I think it sort of throws everyone into a kind of blender of love, and everyone acts kind of insanely. There's Beatrice and Benedict, of course, but there's the kind of plot mechanism that's driven by Claudio and Hero. And Claudio, immediately when he comes back from war, after having liked Hero before war, goes quickly into, he just goes infatuated, goes crazy for her.
I'm talking to the prince, Don Pedro, and I say, he asks me if I'm infatuated with Hero, and I say, oh my lord, when you went onward on this end of action, meaning when you decided to go to war, I looked upon her with a soldier's eye that liked, but had a rougher task in hand than to drive liking to the name of love. But now I am returned, and because war thoughts have left their places in my mind, in their rooms come thronging soft and delicate desires, all prompting me how fair young Hero is, saying I liked her ere I went to wars. And I mean, that kind of, that spills it out. I mean, pretty clean.
How many productions of this have you done?
I played Dogberry twice and Benedict once. I was Dogberry and Benedict in the same production.
This is your first time.
First time as Leonardo.
Yeah.
The white bearded fellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for 3 weeks I've tried to make sense of Leonardo, who, if you know the play, at the wedding, when he accuses Hero wrongfully of being a slut, essentially, and breaks up a wedding, you know, the worst moment in her life, instead of nurturing his child and saying, I still believe in you, honey, I know you're not, and we're going to put this right, he loses his temper completely and says essentially, I want you to die, I wish you'd never been born, you brought shame upon me. So it's this tremendous pride that he has. I just haven't found any way to deal with it except that's just who the father is. That's, he's the father. If he blows his stack, everybody either gets out of the way or tries to, ease it up, and the whole household goes crazy for a while, and it's much ado about nothing. And then it settles down again.
He does go to the if in the scene.
These hands shall tear her. If they do wrong her honor, the proudest of them shall well know of it.
And he goes on about a
It's
10-line
about 10
elaboration beyond
what he's going to do.
That's great.
Time hath not yet so dried this blood of mine, nor age eat up my invention, nor fortune made such havoc of my means, nor my bad life reft me so much of friends. But they shall find something in such a kind, both strength of limb and policy of mind, ability and means, and choice of friends to quit me of them through.
Well, I mean, I've kind of lectured the cast on several occasions about this beautiful, actual, genuine sense of Catholicism in the play that is in no way organizational or institutional. And the Friars' plan, Jesus died and was buried and risen again, and the sins are covered. He basically enacts a teaching from the New Testament, which is, because he kind of goes Old Testament. He goes, I'm going to kill him. And he says no. And he goes on this it's a very beautiful speech. It's probably the longest speech in the entire play, comes from the priest, where he says that only if they think you're dead because you passed out, and they think you're dead, so we're going to pretend that you actually did die, and then only through the suffering that Claudio feels will he, when you come back alive again, will he actually feel genuine love? It's one of his last plays before he couldn't mention being a Catholic or mention it. So it's relatively overt for him. And I think all of this is, you know, very important to the production, not because the focus isn't on Beatrice and Benedict, quite the opposite, because in that scene where this is all happening, which is the kind of, you know, it's the base note, it's a sort of doorway into the depth of the play. Beatrice and Benedict say nothing. She says one full line, he says one full line. That's it. And it's a long scene. And when I was reading it, I thought, oh, you know, this whole thing about him saying, you know, only when we think we've lost somebody do we actually learn that we have any sense of value for them. And I realized, oh, that's what they're hearing that. The reason why they're not talking is because they're hearing what he's saying. And from the next moment, when they all leave, is when he tells her he loves her. And they fall in love, and then she says, kill Claudia. What can I do? Kill Claudia. He thinks she's joking. And then she goes on a tirade that I've read the play, but you know, until Dominique Lozano speaks those lines, you don't quite realize the fury of this woman, having to be a woman. Because she cannot fix this. A man has to fix this. Another rule in Shakespeare, the men have to fix things. His only response to this tirade that goes on for quite a while is, I told you I love you. And she says, well, use it for some other action than just saying it. And then he says, do you think in your soul? I love that, do you think in your soul? That's just so perfect, isn't it? It's not in your mind, do you think in the base of your belief that she's been wrong? And she says, yea, as much as I have a thought or a soul. And then he just goes, okay, I will challenge you. And followed by 2 scenes in where he acts like the biggest schmuck with Don Pedro. After, you know, because he goes, I want to challenge you. And they're like, you're old. They can call an old man like 80 times, right?
Yeah, and then I did the same thing with Benedict.
And then Benedict comes in, and right after that, second thing, they finally, the friar wants to go fighting with them. He takes his, what did they call, capular off, and I took the Uncle Antonio and put it into the character of the friar, partly for financial reasons, and also because now the friar becomes as important as I think, because I got religious. I got some light shining in my eyes. I always thought that these characters, Beatrice and Benedict, were older. That they weren't in their early 30s.
They've definitely been around. I mean, they've had a relationship before, which I think colors the relationship between them now a lot. And it brings up another thing that's so interesting about this play is the subject of pride. That's why we have to trick them into falling in love, because there's neither of us. They each have too much pride to admit that they're still smitten.
Right. It's a great screwball comedy. I mean, it's just great. It doesn't resolve until the last frame. You know, it resolves this only when they admit their love to the world. They admit their love to each other in Act 4. They don't make it public till the last page of the play, second to last page of the play. For him to break with his bromances and threaten to kill his younger brother, quote unquote, younger brother, to enact what it means for Beatrice to be loved. That is about what you do. It's not enough to say it. Now, of course, every pop song in the world has written that, but he kind of plays it out in quite exquisite and quite convincing emotional terms. So the end is really quite beautiful. I thought doing staging Act 5, Scene 4, which is everyone on stage and the letter, and I've got a poem, and who's Beatrice, and there's 6 weddings. I was like, oh, it's gonna be a nightmare, so many people, I got pennies on the set, moving them around, it's gonna be a disaster. And it just became like, it's so great. Every 2 lines, there's a new surprise, and they're just glorious.